The Friday the 13th lawsuit is over. How's it going, guys? As always, my name is Jimmy Champane, and if you like monsters, slashers, pretty much any movie shot during, set during, or inspired by the 1980s, this is the channel for you. Today we're talking about a different mass serial killer than Michael Myers. We're talking about the other big one, Jason Voorhees, because we just hit a huge milestone in the lawsuit that's been plaguing this franchise for a long time now, like a matter of years. I have a whole playlist here on the channel that covers literally every step of the lawsuit, so if you want to go in depth with it, that's there for you. But if you just want the quick refresher, we'll run through it right now. And real quick before we get into the video, if you want my most up-to-date reactions to all this horror news, make sure you follow me over on Twitter at Jimmy Champane. It's linked down in the description. And if you really want to help me out, make sure you subscribe and set your notifications to all. I think I have a pretty good knowledge base on what's going on in the slasher industry, so if you want to get the best info, I think this is a good place to subscribe to. So a few years back, the guy who wrote the original Friday the 13th movie, Victor Miller, took advantage of a law that says after 35 years, if you wrote a script that was turned into a movie, you can take back the rights to your script and then you can redetermine how it's distributed it out. Now, the reason that law exists, obviously, is because if I'm Victor Miller and I get hired by Sean Cunningham to write the first Friday the 13th movie for like $75, and then it becomes one of the biggest franchises of all time, but I have no ownership over that script, I am not making any money off the back end, which in the eyes of the law, I guess, is unfair. So then you can reevaluate when you take the rights back and start making some money off of this property that you kind of came up with because you wrote the script, and then you can start making more money on it based on its popularity. Now, as far as I know, he was the first person to kind of take advantage of this law in a way that made it make sense. So we've seen since then a lot of different franchises go through the same thing. A lot of the ones that Wes Craven owns, for example, and of course, we've got Clive Barker, who just took back the rights to Hellraiser, which is resulting in an HBO show and a brand new Hellraiser movie. So this law, I think, honestly, is a good thing. I think back when it was announced, I was a little upset because, you know, the Friday the 13th game had to end because of it, all the movie developments had to end because of it, but when you see how hard he was getting screwed after coming up with the core concept for the first movie, it's like, yeah, I get why he would want to sue. Oh, and then the biggest example of where this is happening right now is with Marvel, and it really all goes back to Victor Miller and Friday the 13th, which is incredible that Friday the 13th, Jason Voorhees can create this many problems for Disney of all companies, like the biggest of the biggest. Basically what's happening there is a lot of the people who created the heroes, or their estates at least, are going and trying to get the rights back, and Disney is countersuing. And a lot of them are actually using the same lawyer that Victor Miller had, which now that we know what's going on with this lawsuit, seems like a smart move. But anyway, getting back on track with the timeline here, Victor Miller actually won the first time, and he got the US rights to everything that was included in the Friday the 13th original script. So you get Camp Crystal Lake and Jason Voorhees' name, you get Pamela Voorhees, but you don't get the adult Jason who wields a machete and murders people and wears a hockey mask. Sean Cunningham got that, and again, Victor Miller only won this in the United States, so he got domestic rights for these characters. Overseas, it's a completely different ballgame, and then Sean Cunningham obviously appealed that, and the appeal is what just ended, and he lost once again. Now, unfortunately, because of how the rights are split up and how long this lawsuit took and how everything's shaking out in the fallout of this ruling, it's not like tomorrow we're going to get an announcement for a Friday the 13th movie. We're probably going to have to wait a little while for that. But the flip side of that, the good part of it, is that now that this is no longer in a legal battle, some deals can start being made, and we have a future for the franchise. Like, while it was wrapped up in a legal battle, it's obvious why we weren't getting anything, because no one knew who really owned the rights. I'm sure there's actually probably like reasons legally that they couldn't make new movies or continue work on the game, because where does the money go? No one's gonna like keep that money in a pot and give it to the person who wins the lawsuit. You know, stuff like that seems to be very complicated. And again, I am nowhere near a lawyer. I don't know anything about the law. I've just been studying everything that's been going on with this lawsuit for a long time. So I read Larry Zerner's posts on it, and I'm like, okay, I kind of get what's going on here, but I'm by no means an expert. That's all I'm trying to say. Now, as far as getting new movies go, I think the easiest option obviously would have been Sean Cunningham winning this appeal, because he could just go on business as usual and just get some new Friday the 13th movies made, probably over at Warner Brothers, right? But from a moral perspective, it really seems like this is the quote unquote best thing that could have happened. Now, I don't know Sean Cunningham, I don't know Victor Miller. It's easy in this scenario to see Victor Miller as the good guy and Sean Cunningham as the bad guy, because the way this lawsuit was presented is that he took the money and ran. He just blew up this franchise, made it huge, and was keeping all the money and not even giving any kickbacks to Victor Miller. And like the big argument there that I consistently see is that the Jason we know, the franchise we know, the franchise we want to keep coming back, all of the stuff that's really important there is from Sean Cunningham's side of the fence. But I think it is important to have Camp Crystal Lake, the summer camp setting, Pamela Voorhees in the lore, like her zombified head. All of that stuff kind of comes from Victor Miller in some way, except maybe the zombified head, but Pamela Voorhees as a whole being a killer. Stuff like that, the lore of Jason Voorhees, that's a sizable chunk of the Friday the 13th franchise. And I was laughing when I initially tweeted about the lawsuit being over, because a lot of people were responding, just filling me in on the history that I've been covering for years now at this point. Like, guys, I understand what's going on, but this is the best thing that's happened to the franchise in a long time, considering how long we've been waiting for this lawsuit to clear up. And really, I think this is good and it's going to work out, because the whole reason this lawsuit started is because of money. So now that Victor Miller owns a lot of the things that make a Friday the 13th movie a Friday the 13th movie, he can go to Sean Cunningham and say, hey, I'd love to renegotiate with you, buddy, on some new movies that are going to definitely come out. Here's what I need on the back end to give you the rights to all this stuff that you need to make a Friday the 13th movie. And as much as these guys probably hate each other at this point, Sean Cunningham is probably still going to go along with whatever deal Victor Miller wants to make, because at the end of the day, that's the bread and butter of Sean Cunningham's company. Friday the 13th is the biggest thing they put out. That's the thing that's really bringing in the dough. So like, if they have to give some of the money to Victor Miller now, but they get to make movies in the long run that are definitely going to make huge returns on their meager budgets, that's probably what they're going to do. They're going to bury the hatchet for as long as they have to start making some money again. And honestly, the timing could not be better for a Friday the 13th movie to come out. A lot of movies are coming out on streaming. I know that if Paramount by some chance ends up making a Friday the 13th movie, I'm not going to be too excited, because that means it'll end up on Paramount Plus guaranteed day one. But if they kind of renegotiate and take the rights back from whoever has them and say, all right, there's a bidding war now, all of you studios have to come to us and prove to us why you want to make a Friday the 13th movie and why you think you'll make it good, there's a lot of places where it could land where it'll end up back in theaters and be a powerhouse slasher franchise once again. Honestly, I feel like the best place it could end up at this point is Warner Brothers. They've been hammering out ghost movies in the Conjuring universe for a long time, but they also just put out Malignant with James Wan. They have a propensity for putting out horror movies, and they also tend to give them more money than they actually need, as long as the right person is attached to them. I think they did a good job in It Chapter 1. I think they also did a pretty solid job in It Chapter 2. Dr. Sleep is my favorite movie of that year. We know they've got a Salem's Lot reboot in the works. I feel like Friday the 13th just fits so well into their catalog of horror right now. A lot of people are also saying that Universal could probably get Jason, because of course they're the ones who brought back Halloween with Blumhouse, and Blumhouse could probably do something pretty cool with Jason Voorhees. And Ryan Turek is still over there. He's the VP over at Blumhouse. The dude knows and loves Friday the 13th, and I think if anyone's going to bring it back at Universal in the right way, it's definitely going to be him. But also, I don't want all the slasher eggs in one basket. And we know that Warner Brothers might end up with Nightmare on Elm Street, which I know kind of makes me a hypocrite, but as far as I know, right now they don't have it, and Paramount has Scream, Universal has Halloween, so I feel like giving Warner Brothers Friday the 13th, that creates competition, that creates better movies, and we win. I also noticed in the middle of this lawsuit that LeBron James' Spring Hill Entertainment was also in the running to make a new Friday the 13th movie. I don't want to say that I don't want that to happen, because LeBron James is a huge Friday the 13th fan, and if he's sitting on the back end of it, you know, like shepherding it from a producer side, making sure he just hires the right people to make this movie, that could probably turn out pretty good. But yeah, I don't know. If you give me the option between Ryan Turek running things over at Blumhouse and LeBron James over at Spring Hill, who I don't know what he has ever produced in the horror genre, I'm gonna go with Blumhouse every day of the week, because that's just what I want. But at the end of the day, again, just thinking about this more, I want Warner Brothers to get this. I think they could do a good job. Another thing I think people are also wondering now is that if the lawsuit is over and the rights kind of shake out the way they're gonna shake out, could the game come back? Honestly, I think Gun Media has has long since passed on that game. I don't think there's any chance they're going to go back to it. Maybe though, what they could do if the lawsuit really does wrap up and the rights become available is buy them back once again, use that goodwill they built with the fans and say, hey, everyone who owns Friday the 13th now, look at what we did with that first game. You should definitely give us more money for the second one so we can partner with a better developer who's not going to make the buggiest game of all time that we're going to close down when we have to and leave it in a pretty buggy state. You know, they've got a really good pitch that they can take to the owners of the Friday the 13th franchise here. They could say, look, we need more money this time to make a better game. Look at what Evil Dead's doing. That game looks great. We can make an even better version of that with Friday the 13th once again, and we already know what we're doing. We can take all the mistakes we made, everything we learned making the first Friday the 13th game, and apply it to a sequel. I think that would probably be the smartest way to go for them. We also know they're working on a game in the slasher universe. At this point, it seems like they're working on a Texas Chainsaw Massacre game, because I'm not sure if you guys heard this. If you went to leatherfacethegame.com, it actually redirected to Gun Media's website for a little bit. So the jury's still out on what they're working on, but if anything, I would really like to see them take on a full-on Friday the 13th the game sequel instead of going back and continuing development on the first game, because that game is pretty old at this point. I remember I actually bought it the first week I started working for my boss, Austin Evans. It was like the first big purchase I made after I got my first check. So yeah, it's been a while since that game came out. I think a sequel is the way to go for next-gen consoles and PC. Honestly, guys, as much as this lawsuit has sucked, there's really some good stuff that came out of it that I'm personally thankful for. When this lawsuit started, Friday the 13th was still in pretty bad shape. We had the game, which is definitely a high point of the franchise in my opinion, but beyond that, there really wasn't that much to be excited for. I mean, we had an Adam Green movie that was in the works that sounded really cool. It was going to be a Friday the 13th movie set in the winter. We also had a movie, I think from David Bruckner, that was coming that sounded really sweet. It was going to be a found footage Friday the 13th movie. I know the issue there is you can't really film kills in the right way, but I think they could have figured out a cool way to do it. But beyond that, what we had to look forward to, the stuff that was actually potentially going to move forward, was a CW show, which, like, when you look at Friday the 13th, I do not want that franchise to end up on the CW of all places. That just sounds like a recipe for disaster. So now that this lawsuit is kind of wrapping up and officially ending, the playing field is reset and they can kind of put the pieces on the board where they really should go. The rights just aren't sitting at some distributor being passed around to the likes of the CW, you know what I mean? Any way you slice it though, the slasher renaissance is definitely in full swing. We've got Halloween Kills in just a couple weeks. We've got Scream 5 ramping up its marketing, coming out in January, which I'm really excited for. We've got Halloween Ends next year. Candyman just came out, made a ton of money. Hopefully Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street can work their way back in. We also have Hellraiser returning in 2 new ways. We've got David Gordon Green handling one of them. I'm really excited for that. Long story short here, I think we have a lot to be excited for, and it's good that the lawsuit is finally wrapping up. It might not be the perfect outcome that we were hoping for, but things look better for the Friday the 13th franchise now than they have in a very long time. Anyway, guys, that's all I have for you today on the Friday the 13th franchise. Make sure you let me know what you think of all of it down in the comments below, and remember to subscribe and set your notifications to all if you haven't already. As always, guys, my name is Jimmy Champane, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.